Hello, my dear friends. How are you doing? Hope you are having an amazing day and not having to deal with drama. Ready for new stories I have for you today? Let's go to the first one. And don't forget to listen to the end of the story, guys, to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories. And don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. Right after my husband and I got married, he was served with paternity papers for a child he did not know about. A month before our engagement, a year before he had cheated on me with some random girl that was his friend. She got pregnant and never told him. I think because she knew about me. Yes, I know I should have left, but I've been trying to make it work. I am now pregnant with his baby. For the baby's first birthday, my in-laws had her birthday party. The baby and baby's mother lives in another state. At the birthday party, my mother-in-law kept saying she wanted pictures of just my husband, the mistress, and the baby, and we had brushed her off. Then she wanted a picture in front of a backdrop she created. The husband stood up to take the picture and told me to come up too. My mother-in-law got upset, saying she just wanted pictures of the three of them. I didn't say anything. But my husband responded that she was doing too much. He knew I was already uncomfortable. I sat down and pictures were taken. This has already dampened the mood. Eventually, my mother-in-law ended up crying and running out of the room. She comes back saying she feels disrespected. In response, I cut her off and tell her coldly that I don't want drama. I go outside to calm down. They all think that I'm going to leave, but I come back in. I let this go, and even afterwards still tried to be amicable, such as inviting them over for family meals. Eventually, other issues with my mother-in-law surfaced. I'm trying to keep this short, so I won't get into detail now. Her and I end up going to dinner to clear the air. We start talking about the other issues. She starts saying she is never disrespectful. I cut her off by telling her that what she did at the baby's party was extremely disrespectful and hurtful. She says the convo is done and she was not talking anymore. So I left after trying to pay the tab. Afterwards, I sent her a text about boundaries, which included not disrespecting me around his mistress again. I had told her that due to my pregnancy, my mental health right now is what matters. I'm a high-risk pregnancy, and I already had a couple miscarriage scares. She never responded. Eventually, my father-in-law gets involved and says that it wasn't her intent to be disrespectful as an apology. He says the picture was for the baby, so it wasn't disrespectful. However, they now feel disrespected, feel like I only care about my feelings, and I'm being one-sided. Was I disrespectful? Am I the a-hole for being upset and feeling disrespected after my mother-in-law wanted pictures of just my husband, his mistress, and their oopsie baby? Well, it looks like mother-in-law secretly, or perhaps not so secretly, hates OP. It feels like an intentional setup to wreck OP's marriage. It's very obvious she wants her son to be with the other woman. But also, OP knew he was a cheater. She chose to stay in the marriage and have a baby with him anyway. How can she possibly be confused and surprised that she is in a crappy and uncomfortable situation right now? OP only has herself to blame, because people usually treat you as you allow them to treat you. And now let's hear the community's opinion. Your husband cheated on you and had a baby with someone else, and you're worried about your mother-in-law and a picture? How is this relation tenable in the long term? Husband doesn't sound like he's going to put his foot down, and mother-in-law will continue to treat mistress and baby equal or better than you. And you're going to have to see this child, who is the living manifestation of your husband's infidelity as it grows up. Probably in your own home quite often. I'm not saying break up your marriage, but this is something that will continue to weigh down on you until something finally snaps. Honestly, keep a separate bank account and do everything you can to protect yourself when the inevitable happens and you can't live like this anymore. Why you decided to have a baby with a man that cheated on you, I will never know. This mess could have been avoided if you picked up your dignity and sanity and left. Now, 2 kids will suffer this dumb dynamic forever. It's good for the child to have photos with just their parents. You decided to be part of this dynamic, so now you have to deal with it. As for personality-wise, my sis takes after my mom. Always plays the victim, etc. This actually started last year. A week before my birthday, my dog of 8 years passed away. I was absolutely devastated. When my birthday came, my sister had all these plans to go out for dinner and shopping, but I wasn't exactly in a celebratory mood, so I tried to get out of it. My sis kept pushing, so I gave in and met up with her. At her apartment, she had a puppy. I was happy for her as she had been talking about wanting one for months. As I'm playing with the pup, she comes in the living room. "Sis, happy birthday." Me, "Oh, thanks." Sis points to the pup. "No, happy birthday." Then it dawned on me that this pup was for me. I don't want to sound ungrateful, but I was furious. I wasn't over the loss of my dog yet. I was living with my in-laws while we found our own place. My husband just got out of the military and hadn't found a job yet. We weren't ready for a puppy. I tried to explain this to her, but she didn't get it. She told me a friend of hers had puppies, so she got him for free, which was crazy because it was a purebred Great Dane. I reluctantly accepted the pup, but wasn't exactly happy. I took him home. My husband fell in love right away. So did my kids. Mother-in-law wasn't happy because it was a puppy, but we made it work. Fast forward almost a year. Ranger is my little shadow. I ended up bonding with him, and he's totally mommy's boy. My sister is looking to buy a house, and I've been helping her look. She went in one day for a loan and was denied. Her credit score was too low. I was at work when all of this happened, but on break, I had a lot of missed calls and messages. When I spoke to her, it basically went like this. "Sis, what the duck? You ducked me over. I can't get a house now because I got you that dog. You were supposed to make the payments." I was genuinely confused because who makes payments on a dog? She finally told me that she lied about her friend having the puppies, that she actually got him from a Land of Pets store using their credit system, that I was supposed to take over payments when I took him in. All I could think was, "Oh my God, you idiot." I told her that I was in the middle of trying to move, just got a new job. I didn't plan any extra expenses, that this was on her, but she took it to a whole new level. She began blasting me on Facebook, calling family to tell them how I screwed her over. I don't know what to do here. I'm barely getting by right now with the move and all that jazz. I can't afford an additional $300 bill each month, and I know she can't afford it either. Do I let her figure it out? Should I meet her in the middle? Even though I didn't want him at first, nor did she discuss it with me. This is her problem, not yours. You need to remind her that she told you that she got the dog for free and never told you otherwise. So how on earth were you supposed to know that you were to make payments? Beyond this, it was your birthday gift. If she was not prepared to pay for it, then she shouldn't have done it. What is going on with her credit right now is a direct result of her own poor choices, and you should not be held responsible for making payments or anything of the sort. Your sister is an idiot, and she has to deal with the consequences. She never even told you that she bought them, let alone that she expected you to pay. She didn't give you any payment information, not that it would have been your job to pay. Why didn't the pet store call her, send her bills? Just tell her that you had no way of knowing, and you would not have taken the dog under those conditions. The end. I, 32 female, am engaged to Jim, 40 male. He has a 13 or 14-year-old daughter that he only sees on the weekends. This daughter has a horse. Jim has no legal ownership of the horse. His ex does. He does, however, pay for the monthly board and all the supplies he needs. I have a dog I brought into the relationship. Jim does not like dogs and said if I kept the dog, I had to take care of her. I said that was fine, and I'd take care of her. He doesn't even help feed or brush her. Recently, the horse had some health issues on the weekend. Jim drove his daughter to the barn and stayed there all night. That same night, my dog got out and ran into the road and got hit by a car. I called Jim and he said to take her to the emergency vet. I told him I didn't feel comfortable driving that far. I'm not from the area we live in and not used to driving in the snow and ice. I asked him to come back and drive her, and he refused. I ended up having to just drive really slowly while my dog was declining. She survived the initial night and then passed away. I told him he should have driven back to take her to the emergency vet, and he said he needed to take care of the horse. I said it was his ex's horse, not his responsibility, and his daughter could take care of it. I told him he was being selfish and not caring about my dog. Jim thinks I'm overreacting and that he did the right thing and that I shouldn't expect him to help with the dog, even though it was a life or death situation. He says I'm blaming him for something that's not his fault. Am I the a-hole for being upset? Yes, the a-hole. Firstly, you're engaged to this man, yet you don't even know his daughter's age? He's not prioritizing the horse over your dog. He's prioritizing his daughter. Exactly my thought. This daughter? What the duck? 13 or 14 years old? More what the duck. OP, let me help you out here. You said he was being selfish for not taking care of your dog. A dog he was very clear to you that he did not want any responsibility for. You agreed to that. Why should he leave his grieving daughter to help you, a grown woman? OP, I don't know what else to say. Yes, the a-hole. Get it together and act like a grown woman. Yes, the a-hole, and have no business being engaged. You are not mature enough to be anyone's wife or stepmother if you can't even learn the child's age. You are not mature enough to be with a man who has kids if you expect that man to drop his kids for you. Find a man with no kids. My, female 37, soon to be ex, male 37, and I tried for a baby for over a decade, including 3 expensive and painful, physically and mentally, IVF. The last one was 2 years ago. After the 3rd failed attempt, I told him that I was done and couldn't take it anymore. I didn't want to try anymore, and maybe we should give up having children altogether. We loved each other, and maybe that's enough, or maybe we could adopt. He wasn't happy, and a year later he broke the news that he loved me very much, but that he wanted a child. I told him I couldn't go through with this again. I was finally coming to terms with being childless, so he broke up with me. I cried for weeks, and then he started seeing this other girl, so I cried some more. About 5 months ago, I started dating this guy, and because of my condition, I didn't bother with contraceptives. I got pregnant. I'm 13 weeks now. When my husband found out, my stupid brother told everyone, he was so effing mad. He wants me now to get rid of it or put it up for adoption. Our divorce isn't finalized, and he wants us to give our marriage a second chance. He loves me and would rather have me than children. And because I got pregnant once, it could happen again, but with the right man. With the other guy I was still just dating when I got pregnant. We're still dating, and he wants to be a part of the baby's life, whether we end up together or not. My family thinks I'm very odd for choosing someone I've known for less than 6 months over my husband of over 10 years. I think what they're asking me to do is moronic and out of line. I can't afford being a single mom, and I need their help, but they seem to be on my soon-to-be ex's side. I love him still, but how could he ask me such a thing? Need help sorting out my feelings. No. He wants you to get rid of your baby so he can try again. Not the relationship, but the baby making with you, and then leave you again if he can't get you pregnant? I can't imagine his behavior isn't all that new, to be honest. I hope your family comes around. I hope you and the new guy make it. Exactly. He dumped her because having a child meant more to him than she did. If she and got back together with this a-hole, and again didn't conceive, he would leave her again. It's almost guaranteed that he has a timeline in his head. No baby within 2 years. Time to leave and try with another woman. OP, if you really want this child and are okay raising with this man who says he wants to be a part of the child's life, no matter what happens between the two of you, go for it. You may end up being a single mom, so hopefully your family will come around. But be prepared to do this alone. Honestly, that's good advice for anyone thinking of having a baby. You should want it enough that you are willing to go it alone if needs be. Your husband made his choice. You weren't it. His demands now are audacious and not your concern. When I, female 17, was born, my mother was diagnosed with a brain tumor. One of her symptoms was mood swings and reduced ability to judge her actions. I was just a baby and she couldn't take care of me, so I moved in with my grandparents. My father had his own business and that took up a lot of his time. My mother's only company was my older brothers, who were over 12 years old. Until the age of 10, I lived with my grandparents. They had a neighbor named Alice who considered me her daughter. She took me to school, bought me gifts, taught me other languages, gave me advice and traveled with me. I rarely saw my mother, so Alice became my mother figure. After many surgeries and chemotherapy, my mother was finally saved. It was difficult for me to move into her house. I barely knew her. Every day I called Alice, and at least once a week she would take me to her house or some fun outing. Sometimes my mother tried to cut off our contact, and this made me very resentful. When I was 12 years old, my father filed for divorce. The only reason he was still married was my mother's illness. Soon after, he announced that he was dating Alice. According to my mother and older brothers, the two had been having an affair for over 10 years. I remembered the times my mother had been jealous of my relationship with Alice, and I thought things made sense. Despite everything, I haven't walked away from Alice, and she's my best friend. I started going on trips with her and my dad. The relationship with my mother took a turn for the worse, and I was constantly scolded for liking Alice so much. Since then, I've tried to pay more attention to my mother and show more love. I know your life was hard, and I try to make up for lost time and things were going well. Last week, my father announced his engagement to Alice. He invited me and my brothers Luke, male 29, and Simon, male 31. Both declined the invitation, but I accepted. My brothers were furious with me. They said I was being an a-hole for celebrating a wedding that came out of a betrayal of our mother. I asked my mom how she would feel if I went to the wedding, and she said she would feel betrayed and doesn't know how our relationship would bounce back after that. I really want to be present at the wedding. I love Alice like a second mother. I would feel like an a-hole if I didn't go to the wedding, but I also feel like an a-hole if I go to the wedding. Am I the a-hole? This one is hard. Your mom had a lot of crap thrown at her, and the woman ducking her husband managed to insert herself into her life so much that she ended up replacing her in your life for a time, when your mom was very, very ill. And after she could finally be in your life, Alice still hung around like the vulture she is. She wanted your mom's life, and she finally got it. Make no mistake, I think Alice is a cold, calculating a-hole. But you didn't know this then and have love for her. It's hard. But to be honest, if I were your mom, I wouldn't forgive you either. You're free to go, obviously, but actions have consequences. Alice wanted it all and got it, and you are affectingly choosing to honor a woman who took your mom's life and wanted to take her daughter. Yes, the a-hole. My little brother, Rick, got married when he was 19 and his wife was 18. I have no issue with that. It was their decision to get married so young. Personally, it's not what worked for me, but it's his life. Before they got married, he lived with my parents and I lived with my then boyfriend. Rick and his girlfriend Tina would sleep over at my apartment so that they could stay the night together. I had no issues with this. I should explain, at this point, that my brother and I have always had religious differences. He is a fundamentalist Christian and I am not religious. My brother got into some rough stuff in high school. He struggled a lot with drug addiction and the such. Both he and I started having S in high school, so he didn't wait until he was married either. Rick ended up marrying Tina right as she graduated high school, and he joined the Army. I was a bridesmaid at their wedding. About a year and a half later, they had their son. Currently, they are stationed on the West Coast, and I am on the East Coast, so I hardly get to see them or my one-year-old nephew. About 2 years ago, I started dating this amazing guy, Nathan. He and I are living together now. Rick and Tina love him, as he is funny and good with their son. Better than I am, I admit. I'm not great with kids, though I try. Nathan and I were planning to travel across the country to see my little brother and his family this year. But I heard through my mom that Rick and Tina have decided that they were not going to let unmarried couples, including Nathan and me, sleep in the same room in their house. I feel awkward and frustrated to have to follow that rule with my brother in order to stay with him. It's bad enough that when we all visit my parents for Christmas, who live far away from both my brother and me, my little brother and his wife get to sleep in the same room, but Nathan has to sleep on the couch. I want to communicate to Rick that I think it's unfair to make my boyfriend sleep on the couch when I allowed him to sleep with his girlfriend at my house before they were married. Unfortunately, Rick refuses to discuss this with me, saying that it just makes him uncomfortable. I was able to finally get out of him that he didn't want it around his son. I am hurt by the idea that my little brother believes that exposure to my lifestyle would hurt his son. I believe that he is being irrational, and I honestly don't want to go down there and let my little brother tell me that I can't sleep with my boyfriend. We can't afford a hotel, and can barely afford to come all the way down there to see them. If I decide not to see him, my mother will probably be upset by it, and I will get to miss out on seeing my nephew. Your brother is a hypocritical jerk, but like everyone else has said, it's his home and he's allowed to set whatever boundaries he wants in it. I just wanted to make the point that he's a jerk. I wouldn't visit them if I were you. You'd be spending a bunch of money on transport just to feel uncomfortable and have a crappy time. Doesn't seem worth it to me. If your mom gets upset, tell her you think your brother is hypocritical and his request makes you feel unwelcome. Update. I need to give a little more background information before I get into the update. I have seen my brother Rick's son 2 times in his life. Part of this is that he is in the Army and is stationed a good distance away. When Rick and his wife and son came into town for Christmas, They were here for 2 weeks. I tried to see them, but they always had an excuse not to see me. The baby was tired, or they already had plans. Finally, I was able to see them for a few hours before they left town. Both times that I saw them, Rick's wife's sister was present. They stay with Rick's wife's family when they're in town, and they don't really make time for me, so it sucks a little. I get that they have a baby, and that can make it hard, but I would like to be a part of the kid's life for a little bit. Also, Rick and his wife are very religious. To give you an idea of how religious they are, their son will only be going to a religious school. They will not be celebrating Halloween with him because of something about Satanism. And Rick has stated that he would severely punish his son if he ever came out as gay. Both Rick and I were raised by moderately religious parents, but after we became adults, I declared myself non-religious, and Rick seems to have gone in the other direction. Anyway, I talked to Rick about his house rule. I did my best to be calm and polite. I told him, I understand that you get to make the rules at your house, but I want you to know that I am hurt and a little offended that you think that my lifestyle would be damaging to your son, who is not old enough to understand the concept of marriage. Rick just said, well, that's not my fault you're offended. You can come, but don't expect to share a room with your boyfriend at my house and around my son. After Rick and I talked, I thought a lot about how much I had actually seen them since their son was born, and realized that I don't think they actually want me in their lives. Both times I've seen their son was after my mom fussed at him to make time to see me. Rick and his wife have a reputation for being very nice and very religious, so it's possible that they don't feel comfortable talking to me about staying away, and that they want to passive-aggressively push me in that direction. I called my mom to ask her if she thought this was the case, and she basically confirmed it. She told me that Rick had expressed to her that he didn't want me negatively influencing his son, and he wasn't sure he wanted me in his son's life at all, but she had been pushing him to make time to see me. I've decided that I am not going to fight this fight. If my brother doesn't want me in his son's life, then I will step away. I'm not flying out to see them since I don't believe I am welcome. I have already sent their son a birthday present, should be there tomorrow, and will do the same next year. When my nephew is old enough to see me on his own, we can have a relationship then.